Welcome to the final lab. So I'm flattered that somebody was so intrigued by the topic of CSI that decided to come here today. I'd like to introduce our panel here today. Blue ribbon panel representing the consultant world. First of all, got Jeff Pronschinske, on the far left, Dave Miller, in the middle, Fernando Neto from Arup. And like each of you gentlemen, starting with Jeff, just say a couple of words about yourself and your organization so the folks here can understand.
Before I I'd like to pronounce the long last name, Pronschinske. Got 30 years in this security industry. From various roles. I started in manufacturing, went to contracting, and over the other years here I've done consulting work. In 2004, I got involved with the Construction Specifications Institute. That's when they were adopting their new 6-number format for product specifications, and went through their certification course and became an instructor. So, I don't know if you remember in 2004, there were people from CSI stopping in various offices, giving lunch and learns on the new numbering format. Got involved in that process. So I think that's why you got me here today, right?
Well, the other reason was, aren't you a master format instructor? Don't you teach classes in this stuff, Jeff?
Yeah, and that was just, again, it was a certification program that we had to go through with CSI. And that they mobilized their force and they get people up to this new numbering system. So I was part of that.
Okay, can you all hear Jeff okay? Could you hear him okay? Good. Mr. Miller.
Mr. Miller was my grandfather. So I actually have 2 businesses. I have MCG Design Services, which is a fire alarm and security design business, and I also have MCG Commissioning Services, which we commission fire and security systems. My background is I'm totally self-taught in door hardware. I don't know that I've ever done a formal class. Done some pretty big door surveys on what I call brownfield projects. And coming from my sales background as a system sales rep, I kind of sit in that netherworld because a lot of stuff I've did over the years has been what was Division 17, which was never a formally recognized division by CSI through the 80s and early 2000s, so 2004. So I kind of come from a different background, and I think I'll throw out a few things that might make us think a little bit. I think there's some things about the way we schedule door hardware that needs to be looked at. That was one of my biggest things about the whole CSI MasterFormat.
Okay. Well, thank you, Dave. Fernando, I drafted you into this thing. I know you were saying, why didn't you call me? But tell people about you.
I think it might be because I gave you a hard time over that cabling issue in Division 28. Or
Actually, it is. It is.
No. I'm Fernando. I'm with Arup in Toronto, Canada. Arup is a global firm, approximately 90 offices across 40 countries with 14,000 employees. And we do everything engineering related, design related for any kind of construction type project. I started in the consulting industry roughly 20 years ago, but as a structured cabling designer, so not in security. I got into the security world after having also done a stint of about 3 years specifying, designing AV systems. I got into security around 10 years ago, so I'm a little bit behind in experience, but I think what I bring to this forum is also some experience in just general specification writing and as you mentioned Division 17, that brought back some old memories because when I started in the industry, MasterFormat 95 was what was still being used, and where I worked, we had Division 17 for communications. So that brought back some memories.
And since you're from Canada, it's worth saying that in Canada they have CSC.
Correct.
And CSC follows the CSI MasterFormat. The organizations have an association. It's just that for some reason, the numbering hierarchy is different in CSC than is in CS. I don't mean the division number, but the way that the paragraphs are numbered in the body of the spec. I don't know why they exist, but in terms of the MasterFormat discussion, they're one and the same.
Yeah, they're the same. I think the difference is in the numbering, as you're saying, is that I believe in the US, as you go down the indentation of the spec, it's number, letter, as you keep indenting further. Right? Ours is always numbers. That's yeah. But I mean, it's like, frankly, that's not even here nor there.
Yeah. But sometimes people will ask me, well, do you do CSI or CSC? And they don't really know what we're talking about. Just that one's US, one's Canadian. The basis of those specs are the same. So hopefully we'll have this one working today. But I'm curious because, you know, because prior to 2016, the previous rev in MasterFormat went all the way back to 2004, and the primary input in 2004 was from Bixby. And so it was Woolfield date, so I think we were, you know, in the mode industry where people were, you know, making up their own numbers and doing, you know, it was the Wild West. And in 2016, we at least, you know, made an attempt to bring it up to date. However, I'm curious to know, for you consultants out here, do you follow MasterFormat? Do you really follow it religiously? Do you tweak a little bit? Do you just say, screw it, I'm going to make my own numbers, or just totally ignore it? So, just kind of curious to know how people feel. I think I know where it's going to come out, but we're going to find out.
Presuming we're allowed to vote too.
Oh, absolutely. Jeff, where's your smartphone? Okay. All right. Let's see how we come out. All right. Very interesting. So, a few religiously. Interesting. I expected a couple of D's in here, but no. So that's good. So, large portion with some minor tweaks, and as you can see, some with major. I know one area where there certainly was major movement was in detention, because there was a whole subsection that was totally misnamed in the 2014 MasterFormat that was around the detention area. And Jeff was the lead on a significant portion of the 2016 update for the committee that we put together, and we just ripped that apart. And for example, with video, they were basically video support systems, but some major things were done there. But one thing that people, I think, may or may not realize, that you can still play by the rules with CSI and use your own numbers. I mean, you are not required to use the classifications. They're a guideline. And if you find something that doesn't, in the formal document that doesn't meet your need, then you can actually take an unused or an unreserved number and use it for your own sake. This is really, I look at CSI MasterFormat as bringing discipline to the construction specification process. And so it's a guideline. And the fact that something may come out, we're going to talk a little bit later about Division 8 and Division 28. Oh, it's in Division 8, I can't do that. As consultants, you can do what makes sense to you using this as a departure point. We've tried to address a lot of what's in here in the 2016 update.
So, and Randy, interject, but
sure.
I know we went through the MasterFormat accreditation, the instructors program kind of thing. We asked these guys that, develop this new 6-digit numbering system. We started looking at some of the standard numbers they were using, and it's like, okay, why are you calling this, division such and such? 13 was like the final number. OE was 10, 13, and then someone ended it at 19, and all these really odd numbers for some of the standard specifications that you'd use. And it's like, well, why are you picking these goofy numbers for your standard specs? And what they were trying to do was try to keep the more, prime or whole numbers like 10, 20, 30 for user assignment. It was all done for that purpose. So they purposely don't end any of their assigned specification numbers in a 10 or a 20 or a 30, because those are all reserved for customized use. You follow me?
Okay. All right, so second question. If you look at generally the areas of where you spec and what presents the greatest challenge for you in the specification? Pavement door hardware, the networking part of it, or integrated systems. So if you got video, you got access, you got that, what do you put integrated system?
I choose E, all of the above. That is acceptable.
I never tried Fernando hitting all 4 buttons at one time. They'll probably break it. Okay, so I had 12 volts last time, assume we get 12 this time. Interesting, integrated systems and networks. I mean, indoor hardware. Yeah, I would agree with that. So, why is it only you who has a problem with cabling then?
Well, do you really want to get into some position?
So first of all, I'm not going to go back to all the changes in 2016. We got plenty of briefings on that and all of that. But so in 2018, here's some of the things that were done. First of all, we in access control, we added something called the Unified Access Control System and access control cloud services. In audio monitoring, we added shock detection. In fact, I just in talking to CSI, they in fact have approved shock detection. They're going to call it gunshot detection. If anybody would like to suggest an explanatory note on that one, by the way, they've asked me for an explanatory note, which are these guidance notes in the specification. They're looking for a guidance note in gunshot detection. So that's in there. Last year, you know, as we sort of recast things into access control, video, security alarm and monitoring, then we had life safety, which picked up fire alarms. And we had a catch-all category called specialized systems that included information systems like PSIM systems, it included detention, and we suggested adding intercom systems. And frankly, one catalyst for that was getting Command on board and seeing the scope of what we're doing and realizing that an intercom system is really more than just a little bolt-on telephone entry, you know, for an access control system. That intercom systems can in fact have elements of mass notification, analytics, you know, a lot more than access control. So we've suggested that as well. We also suggested adding cybersecurity requirements to any division that touches the network. You know, electrical, HVAC, you name it. And so there's 12 or 13 different divisions that potentially could touch the network. And so we've suggested they add a cybersecurity requirement to each one of those. Don't know what that's going to be. A couple of things in Division 1 and Division 2. And then Division 8, what we suggested was adding mechanical requirements for electrified locking hardware and appearance requirements for electrified locking hardware. Because the division in 2016, and this generated quite a bit of controversy, the electrified, there are several areas in openings, Division 8, that we recommended and was approved back then that were taken out of 8 and put to 28. That was the electrified locking hardware, it was keypads, and it was biometrics. And as soon as the hardware industry found out that that had happened, there was a hue and a cry from the masses out there, and there was a lot of jockeying back and forth, and that generated a lot of discussion now going to 2018. So we're just going to talk about some of that first and set aside part of our discussion today for just that purpose. So let's talk about the door specification dilemma. And then we're going to touch on networks, we're going to touch on cabling. So I know this is a subject near and dear to your heart, Dave. So these are some of the comments that we got as we were looking, going into 2018, about what we ought to do. There's a body of people that said you never should have moved it in the first place. And on the door hardware side, and even within our own industry. There was a body of people that said, no, it absolutely belongs in Division 28. And there were those that said, it could be either. So here's one comment, Lynn Chan. Is John Test still here? Yeah, so you know Lynn, right? Okay, I was hoping he could be here. So he's leaning towards 8 in this. Brent Ballman said clearly should be the responsibility of the door frame supplier in Division 8. go wade in. So this is certainly not clear cut. And Frank came squarely down on the Division 28 side. So even within our own industry, we don't have a strong consensus of what's what's going to be the case. So with that, where's it going to go? There was tremendous discussion on the MasterFormat committee and conference calls that involved the security side and involving the Door Harbor Institute. Door Harbor Institute reflecting some of the comments that you see here, and that is, if it's on the door, it ought to be the door guy. Pure and simple. It's always been that way. The argument, the counter argument to that, and we understand that, it's history and it's really disrupting the apple cart when you make such a major change, particularly affecting the architects. On the other hand, if you look at what's on the door in terms of credentialing, right, you've got biometrics, electrified keypads, and oh, by the way, CSI said, well, generally speaking, we like to keep the electrified and smart stuff in 28 when it comes to security, and the passive or quote dumb stuff, or they want to be quoted on that, in Division 8. So now you've got a piece of equipment that's basically a small computer and communication device getting more powerful all the time, sitting here on the door that the security integrator is responsible for, right? And oh, by the way, now that we're using that authentication mechanism for network access, for building, HVAC, lighting, whatever it might be, playing, through the network and databases, it's not just a function of opening the door, it's a function of opening the world up to a whole bunch of other stuff. And, do we trust all of that to the door guy? Particularly when the security systems integrator is going to be responsible for living with this thing, making it work. And the argument that would be made if you were here today by Phil Aronson, at Aronson Security and other people in the industry said, look, we don't even get a seat at the table here. Quite often we walk in, the wires are hanging there, and they'll say, make it work. It's at the last minute, and then we've got to surface it, we've got to warranty it, we've got to make the whole thing play. And more often than not, it's just a cluster. So there's the controversy, and there's probably no answer to it. But let me just step back for a second and get your perspective, Dave, on that.
So I jotted some notes to myself, and the first thing I wrote was the word flexibility. I think we need, I probably come down more just on principle on the Division 8 side because of the coordination issues. But I've done jobs that are what I call greenfield, brand new, coming up out of the ground, hundreds, thousands of doors. And there's so much coordination between the doors and the frame. Even if we're doing an integrated lock set, that door has to be prepped correctly. So in my mind, it makes sense to stay in 8 so that coordination is done correctly. Now, as we all know, that is no guarantee. Okay. I did a job for a utility. We did a bunch of the Harmony locks, Sergeant Harmony locks. And I was going by one of the storage places like this, like a little carport, and these are just supposed to be key lock doors. And there's a Harmony lock sitting on the door, and there's no conduit going underground after it. Why did it end up there? And to this day, to my knowledge, it's still sitting out there. Things like that happen. But I've also done jobs like when we did Lane Community College, we surveyed 500 doors. Not a single new door was going to go in on that project. It doesn't make sense then to put a separate door hardware schedule in 8 because we're not doing doors and frames. I really needed locking hardware that was totally configured to be part of the access control system. So I think we need actually the flexibility of putting door hardware where we need it depending on the project needs. So I'm not going to be an advocate that it has to be an 8 or it has to be in 20. I think it's situational.
So we put it in 8, Dave. What mechanism, then there's a question out to all of you. You put it in 8, how do you get the electronic security? How do you guarantee the electronic security integrator is involved appropriately to make sure the whole system plays well with the access control system and other pieces of parts? How do you do that?
Well, and again, it's not just a specification, we should have very specific language, if I wrote down certifications, qualifications, and QC. The one comment up there about QC, I think we have to have a hand in reviewing the Division 8 specifications to make sure that we're tying them back to Division 28. But also looking at the door talking with our architect, because you know, a lot of times as consultants, yeah, we're doing the AEC thing, but we're really working for the owners a lot of times. We're not, the architect grudgingly brought us on board, but they need to let us look at their door typicals and things like that, and we need to know. And of course, they're trying to show an access control reader on their floor plans. We're like, no, I'm not going to go there. You know, it's a handicapped door and it's right next to the door. No, it needs to be a few feet back from the door, etc. So we need to have a hand in reviewing, and I'm really big on trying to coordinate the specifications and the drawings. The specifications without drawings and drawings without specifications are incomplete. So you need the whole set. So I don't know. On that Harmony job that we did, they were qualified. They'd been through the factory training, and still a third of our locks had to be redone because the carpenters matched the wiring that went into the locks. Now it's probably a pretty fine wiring, and it could be done, but they just don't take the care that an access control technician.
So you try to work with the architect.
I try to work with the team.
But how do you make sure the integrator is involved at the right point, you know, with the door supplier, if that's the way it's going to go, to make sure that job goes in as you, the designer, the security designer, wanted to go in?
Well, again, that depends. I mean, if the integrator is already a continuing integrator with the end user, then you bring them in as early as you can. If it's going to be an open bid and we've qualified down to the manufacturer level, and I've got three or four integrators going to bid the job, I don't want to bring them to the table because they're all going to start trying to shove their own way into it and voice their opinions and fight over it. So,
do you have enough power to bring to the table?
It depends on each. Again, it's situational. Every client situation is based on your relationship with the team members, and I think if we can humbly start to assert our proficiency, it begins to. I'm sitting next to like two really big firms in the business. I'm a sole proprietor, basically. Okay, this is kind of like the bookended a little bit.
Don't be intimidated.
I'm not that passionate. I'm on the roll. So anyways, and a lot of my work over the last few years has been contractor support. I did a small courthouse job. This is an amazing courthouse. 30 access control doors, and it's a county of 1,700 people. So I mean, the per capita reader for people is pretty high. And we started going through it, and it was written by one of the manufacturer's people, and seeing it from the contractor perspective, you begin to realize, yes, somebody needs to have been in that project early on. The MEP had a security consultant on it. Okay, well, not very good. And we started getting down into it, and I started pushing questions, RFIs out. First time ever, I've been bonused on a project. No question. I want you to bill me for this much because you saved me more than that. So they start putting the wiring on. So I mean, the greatest thing in the industry in the last 5 years is these harnesses that come pre-assembled with the Molex connector. I mean, I used to require everybody to solder and heat tape their connections at the door because we don't want to be digging into that door later. And so we start getting into it, and they're specifying the harnesses, and in this one manufacturer, you have to add a suffix to make sure that the Molex connector gets on. I pointed it out. They redid it and got it to the right length. They were giving us a 10-foot harness to go in the door between the hinge and the lock. I mean, come on, guys. And they go, well, you can just kind of refit. I go, what is the point of kind of redoing a Molex connector with the pins? I just wasted all that time I was supposed to save. So I'm trying to move on, but anyways, the problem is that I really think the manufacturers need to push down to the distributors because they have the attitude of the business, in my opinion. Why are you
okay. Now I'm going to push back a little bit because you've got door hardware distributors. Push out door hardware distributor, that's not going to help the problem with electronic integrator. Now I know everybody's.
Well, I just want to throw one more little problem in the mix.
Oh yeah, we can use some more.
When you're talking with between the Division 8 hardware people and the Division, the security people, don't forget that you also have to take into account the fire life safety Because many of these doors are fire-rated, fire doors, smoke doors,
Yeah.
and there are very strict limitations on any modifications to that door or frame.
You can't well, you can.
You can, but you have to have it recertified, and it has to be certified by somebody.
And there's people who can actually redo that certification in the field, yeah.
But that's what I'm saying, this is
That's what
not,
I'm talking about, yeah.
don't overlook that specifically on
Yeah, that's
perimeter
right.
doors,
That's
or
right.
any specific doors in hospital care facilities and things, where these are smoke barriers, and you can't just start drilling holes in them.
So, you know, I want to stay in the electronic security integrator talk for a second. And I know, Lorna, you guys at, you know, Security by Design, you've got project coordination requirements, I think even as part of the deliverables, right, that, you know, that you do to try to force that coordination. What's been your experience now, and, you know, because you've done a lot of door projects there in trying to bridge that gap, and do you tend to specify in one place or the other now?
Well, we typically work with the hardware specifiers to get things.
Okay, hold on one second, to get your mic there. Take it away from Dave.
Yes. Through the architect, we work with the hardware specifiers, and you know, having worked on the Division 28 team, I know that the folks that were working on this natty issue came up with a way from at least the two big giants in the door hardware industry, and Legion. They both have a way within their hardware specification division where they can just do a little check mark in their database, and they can put the electrified hardware in either Division 8 or Division 28. We, in the past, have always had the hardware specifier refer to the security specification for the card readers and things like that. It is becoming more difficult where the card reader and the biometric reader and all those things are included in the lock.
Right.
And that's what they were trying to address. What I'm finding currently is that there's a gap, because you have the door guy who comes in and puts on the hinges and sets up the door. Then you've got the lock hardware guy who comes in and puts the lock on. And then you have the security integrator that comes. And for the first time, I've experienced a situation where the security contractor said, oh, well, we pick everything up at the hinge. And the lock hardware guy said, I don't do anything with wires. And so if the lock hardware guys want to retain the specification in Division 8, 8710, then they're going to need to step up and understand how to deal with the wiring through the wired hinge. And I haven't seen that happening yet. And the security contractor is going to have to be willing to pick that up. We typically say the security contractor is responsible for making sure that the door works, and if the door hardware guy doesn't do the wiring, then the security guy has to pick it up. In the past, we had a situation where the hardware guy would come in and install the hardware, and then the security guy would come behind him, take off the hardware unless we could get them all there at the same time, and do the wiring. So it's been a problem for a long time, and there's no one solution right now.
And you know, we did a similar session at ISC West that Ed was on, and one of the things that was expressed in that session was that if the electronic security guy was going to take responsibility for the door locking stuff, that he really needed to have a strong door resource, either on staff or a strong relationship, and that's an issue too. So you've got the door guys that need the electrified skills and vice versa, and neither one are there yet, so you still have this thing. So somebody's got to smack their head together to try to get it working. And so we're now starting with you back there.
I would say the only comment that we've had that we've found quite successful in New York, especially being such a union-heavy city, is getting the GC to set up a PLA, project labor agreement, right at the start of the project. So you buy that insurance up front. So it's agreed that, exactly what Lauren was saying, we run into projects where the labor, the the laborer guys will own putting the lock in, then local 3 will come back and take it out, and the security contractor will come back and wire it up. So we've had 3 different guys touch it. So if you set up that labor agreement, what we found to be successful, and we've done it on a number of large infrastructure projects, on the front side as to who's doing what, you can sort of really cut that back down to next to nothing.
Where's that negotiation take place, Renee?
Right at the start, you gotta get,
Between whom?
you bring the general contractor to the table and you bring all the union presidents to the table. Because really what they're fighting over is who's going to own the work.
Right.
So call it extortion, call it, paying to play type of thing. But that's really what it comes down to. It starts breaking down who owns what in the overall process. So as much as we put it into the specs, at the end of the day, it's the unions who are going to make or break the project, especially in union-heavy cities, to be sort of aware of.
I kind of just a comment on that is,
You want to respond to that, John?
Yes, definitely, it's directly on the his because I'm in New York City as well. And I have a lot of, I think I talked loud enough. We take care of that process before it even goes to the GC. We do it between the architect, security, and the door hardware contractor. All that is negotiated, coordinated prior to even going to the GC.
As the integrator,
The integrator's not in.
he's not?
Not in it at all. I write the specification, I put it on my plans with the securities. The doors it's on is the doors it's on. That's it. That's what the owner wants. All right? I pass that information to the architect. The architect, they're working on the doors. I don't care if it's metal, wood, glass. I don't care. There's security on that door. It's their responsibility to whatever fancy door, whatever they want to put on there, right? They pass that information on to the door hardware contractor. He takes that information, he specifies what the locking hardware is, okay? For that door, whether it's rated, everything, that's her responsibility, all right? I get that specification, that aid, back. It's my responsibility to go through it to make sure the electronic stuff is there to make my stuff work, okay? That's it. I approve it or I reject it. If I reject it, they have to fix it, okay? Then it comes back to me. Believe me, it's a painstaking thing,
Sure.
but they get it. Once that's coordinated, me and the door hardware, and I work very closely with my door hardware contractors. I mean, literally, we go via direct, so we don't get into food fights with the architect and door frame people. So we work very closely. But once we coordinate, we give it back to the architect, that's it. That goes to the G, that's approved by the architect and the owner, and that's it. GC comes down, they have an issue. If they have an issue with something, or there's a problem, our stuff is all coordinated, okay? So that's between them and the owner, the client.
And the electrical part of it. Okay, Rob, go ahead. Nick.
It's low voltage, I'm sorry, to get with him. He's correct, low voltage, like I said, usually for a lot of the security contractors, you have the low voltage, security contractor is a subcontract to the low voltage.
Rob, comment?
So I'd be fine keeping all of the locks, electronic locks in Division 8 if the Division 8 people can support it, but they can't. My big issue is warranty and making sure that the integrator gets paid to do all the integration stuff that's required for these doors. And I just don't see how to do that. I'm not real comfortable with the integrator getting involved with the doors. There's a whole world there that they don't know as well as I'd like them to know. But I gotta have that system work. When it goes online, it's gotta, the person that's gonna make it work is the integrator. And if I could find a way to make sure that warranty issues were taken care of, service issues were taken care of by the Division 28, I think these other issues would go away.
Yeah, okay.
Just one point.
Hold on, wait for the mics to be picked up here, so, please.
Okay, so I guess, Fernando, you'll recognize this right away, but there's
Plus Chris Fitzgerald, by the way, from
Intron.
H.H. Angus.
Hello there, fellow Canuck.
That's right. Anyway, working at that market, we have specific Division 8 suppliers, and some of them have very good architectural hardware. One of the best is Boyd from UCSH, and what he does is on jobs that he's on from the start, as a Division 8 guy, he provides a table of responsibilities, a division of responsibilities table, which then, it's very key that gets in before the electrical is brought on, and they get to see it. Because a lot of times, Division 28, where we are, comes in under electrical.
So division responsibility table. You guys do something similar, don't you, Lorna? So, yeah,
So I found that works. If everyone sees it, it's a good tool. But you've got to make sure whoever your electrical guy is, or the electrical engineer, sees it as well. But then it can be really useful. So there's a table, and what it is, it's every single device, every kind of device, every kind of wiring, it says who does it. You
Right,
keep that.
on government jobs, we're not allowed to have that.
Right.
You're not allowed to have that.
Right.
Could I, sorry, Chris, just a question for you, I'm curious, because I haven't worked with that hardware consultant. And does that matrix of responsibility get into the specification in some section?
I put it in electrical general. I give it to the electrical, and they put it in their spec.
So that matrix of responsibilities is basically outlining for the contractor, which contractor is responsible for what?
Yeah.
So I have a concern with that. And the concern is that, and Jeff, being with CSI might have a different opinion, because obviously, and I would say his opinion will likely be correct. But what I've learned over the 20 years I've been working with specifications is that the MasterFormat specifications aren't meant to address who does what.
That's correct.
The specifications are meant to be provided to somebody like a general contractor. They own the project. The entire project from beginning to end, it's their job. If there's an AV component in there and they don't hire an AV contractor, that's their problem. They still have to provide that. So by putting a matrix of responsibilities and specification, you're now kind of forcing the general contractor to do something that they might not either agree with or be familiar with or be interested in doing that way.
Fernando, let me clarify that. Are you putting, there may be a terminology thing, are you putting the upfront division of responsibility in there, or are you doing what I think they do at Security by Design, and that is requiring that matrix to come in as a submittal, basically? Isn't that roughly right, Warren? Where the contractor's going to say how it's going to be partitioned out?
On our projects where we use it, we have bid and response, and we do it as an informational piece that says, this information has been specified in this section, and this information has been specified in this other section. And here's just a summary of where the different responsibilities have been specified. And so we're expecting that to be utilized to help all of the different contractors understand and more easily see who they have to interface with to get things done.
Okay, so
We don't actually put it in the spec piece, it's in.
we'll take a couple more comments on this, then we're going to move on to the piece of this.
I just want to chime in real quick, because, in addition to these, this upgrade from 5-digit to a 6-digit numbering system, they didn't just release the new master format 2004, they also went down to section format, page format, and all that. And when they did the revisions to section format, in their specifications, you remember in the old project specifications, you'd have all these related sections in the front of your section. They took that out. They didn't want to have each consultant have to list each section that was related to their work, because ultimately the project manual is complete. The contractor is responsible for everything. You don't have to mention a related section. And so it's the same thing with calling out divisions of work. They don't want to do that. It's a single contract, single package. And it's really not up to us specifiers to tell,
Can I comment on that? that's a perfect world approach. So I was just working on a project this morning before breakfast where I was helping a contractor. And I don't think I've ever seen it before. It was a fire alarm project. And the consultant had actually put 2 diagrams into the specification. I mean, that was kind of unusual, but what he was doing was diagrammically showing where the handoff was for when we're monitoring the sprinkler system. He made a line of demarcation. When we're having a relay configuration for like fan shutdown or fire smoke dampers, he showed the line of demarcation where who had what responsibility on which side. So part of it, I'm sitting here and I've been hearing this, I'm kind of going, okay, so how would I approach this moving forward? Is, to me, on projects quite often on the fire side, we have duct smoke detectors, because putting the stupid dumb duct smoke detectors on the HVAC system is just a bad move. We want the addressable stuff to go on. But the mechanical guys don't have access to that equipment. So now what we're doing is we're saying supplied by and programmed by fire alarm, installed by HVAC. So why not just put it down this way? Supplied by door hardware, installed by systems integrator.
Because CSI will tell you that the whole master format is not designed to specify who does what.
But because, but again, like I'm saying, they live in the perfect ivory tower. We live in the real world.
Yeah.
And in the real world, you gotta say who does what.
Well, that may be one of those minor tweaks there, because again, these are guidelines. Now, Michael, you have a comment, right?
Yeah. Thank you very much. I've done plenty of projects both ways. By far, I've had the most failures and least change orders. Most failures, but least change orders if we don't specify who does what. Having a camera in a parking lot get bought out under the concrete contractor, which is a different integrator than is inside the building. So it's fiber connected. The fiber is then bought by the telecom guy. So your cameras in the field aren't compatible with your head end because one was bought by concrete. Concrete guy's like, I don't care. Yes, our scope should be tight enough that it locks it in, but it's also performance-based specification, and it's 2 different contractors. And then the CM owns it all. Yeah, the CM owns it all. So textbook, least change orders, most problems if we don't specify it. Opposite, least problems, more change orders if we do specify.
And my experience is just the opposite. Is that when we lock down who does what, it doesn't get missed in the bid, and there's no finger pointing going, well, I thought you had it, or I thought you had it. So, I mean, again, it depends on the market you're working in, too. I mean, and how proactive the generals are.
So just to get, bring this to some sort of closure here, today's world, for you consultants out here, if you had your druthers, which your starting point for specifying, and I say electrified locks, and that includes intelligent, but there may be a problem with that split as well, but let's start with intelligent. If you had to specify intelligent locks, would your druthers be to do it in Division 8? Raise your hand. Okay. Or Division 28, raise your hand. Okay.
Can we have option C? Option C is based on the needs of the project. I don't want to go. I don't want to sit here and make a black or white decision.
No, I'm just saying if you had your druthers, and it's 50-50, which is kind of what we found. We found consensus. Okay. Now that's just intelligent. If you just expanded that to intelligent and electrified, the whole thing, who would say 8? And who would say 28? Okay, so not much of a swing there. So what's CSI going to do? Well, just call it. What's it?
So I have one thing I'd like to have done, and Mark address this, and that my question is, we have to think about who can buy the product. So as these devices become more and more intelligent, who are you guys going to sell them to?
And I'd also like to hear watch your bosses listening here now.
Don't be shy.
All right. Now, this is a very, very difficult conversation to have, okay? But our mission is really to have the best user experience possible, okay? We try to put mechanisms in place so that if a project, intelligent locks, were put in Division 8, there's mechanisms in place so that the integrator is a vetted, competent individual to be able to do it right.
How do you do that, Donna?
By having an authorized channel partner and certified integrator strategy. So that just means in regular spec language, we just want to make sure that the right person has it.
So you're controlling the deliverer of those goods and services through your training and certification criteria, is what I'm hearing.
Yes, we're not controlling it. What we're trying to do is do our due diligence to make sure that, first of all, doors and hardware, they're complicated, right? And it's a different world. The Division 8 and Division 28, they're two separate worlds. But we're meshed completely because we're trying to make openings smarter, leaner, faster. And end users want more access control for better price points. So this is why this conversation is going to be had for a long time. Because
because you don't want to see jobs go south. It makes you look bad, more customer support calls and all of that.
Right, and what works well is so you specify a product, say an integrated solution that's in Division 28, but you reference back in Division 8 that it's going to be a Mortise electrified lock set, so that you have the template and prep taken care of on the door part, and then you have, you want to reference and point back and forth to each other. So we're really not pushing Division 8 or 28. We just want the best user experience for the end user, for the integrator, the architect, the specifier. So that's why we've interjected ourselves by having this channel strategy.
So Patrick, I'm going to ask you to hold yours for just a second. And now, you guys in intelligence stuff, on your side over there, Marcus, you took a little different approach, didn't you?
So
you want to address that, or you want to?
Yeah, sure. So I can neither confirm nor deny. What a conundrum. Interesting enough, when Ray approached me about Division 28 some 3 years ago when I got involved in this, I thought CSI was a TV show. I mean, seriously. And this was the foremost discussed topic. I have probably discussed this over 100 times. Wow. I mean, y'all really had a lot of pain over the years. And so, what a black eye. I mean, I'd turn around and get punched if I even mentioned this. Why in the hell aren't you controlling the channel? And we recently had somebody come on board that said, here's how we can fix this. So what we have recently done, because as well as I do, is that if you're not controlling it, you're going to be part of the problem. And so we shifted our strategy to market with the intelligent lock. And if it's going on the network, if it's going on the enterprise, it has to come through the software panel provider. They know who is licensed, right? So that product is now going through the likes of Linnell, Software House, S2, to the integrator. If it's going on the enterprise access control panel, the contract hardware distributor can buy it, but he has to also be certified, and it goes through the software panel manufacturer. Simply put.
So, quick question. So, the door is supposed to be a panic device with Mortise lock. Door has a very specific prep for that.
Well, let me address that before you even voice it. There are certain locks that cannot be done through that because of fire codes. I mean, there's several doors that we just can't flip that business over. But there's still a component of coordination that is done internally through our safety and specification offices.
So if you have 500 doors that have access control on a campus, 250 of them are intelligent, harmony, some kind of a combination redirects, lock, the whole 9 yards. You're saying that should go through 28.
Now, I'm not saying a division. I'm not saying
well,
anything about
but
8 or
the integrator's
28.
going to be in 28. So, and then the other half of them are just normal electrified hardware. So you've got now a coordination issue to make sure, I mean, we see doors get missed all the time. Now you're going to try to make sure that the door's prepped correctly.
So I didn't say it had to go through a specific division. I'm just saying we're trying to control how it goes to market so that coordination is a foregone conclusion.
But the coordination that you're emphasizing is on the operational side, once the door is wired and operating.
Correct.
But a big chunk of it is that door has to operate correctly. It has to lock, it has to latch, it has to be prepped correctly to be even to get to that point. And how do you ensure that that coordination, if it's coming through, let's say it's, okay, we're not saying which division, but if it's coming through the integrator, they're supplying the lock, and the frame and the door are coming through the door people, how do you make sure that they're all like on the same building?
So here's the dilemma. You've got a mechanical, contraption here that needs to work as intended. And you have an electronic component that needs to communicate and think and sense and deliver information as intended. And those are two vastly different skill sets. And that intersection right now is still murky, and it's getting murkier because of the intelligence in those locks. But I think what I'm hearing from both Aboy and Legion is that you guys are working through your channels to make sure that whoever delivers your product, who's going to install it, service it, has enough of the right kinds of skills to do it, that you're trying to force, their role in the game, irrespective of the division. Now, we'll tell you this, and then we're going to move on to another topic, because we don't want to resolve this today, but the more we talk about this stuff and public forum understand it, I think the more, we're going to be able to somehow make some sense out of it. So, the DHI folks proposed taking all this back out of 28 and putting it into 8. And, just one second. And so MasterFormat committee met, it couldn't resolve it. And this is after the conference calls. They met again last week. I was expecting a call on Friday, didn't get it. Called this morning and said, what's up? We need another call. We got a few things to iron out. Oh, by the way, you got gunshot detection approved. I said, well, what's your sense? So, my guy with the Rob Pulse, he's pretty good. He keeps me informed. The sense that I got, and this is unofficial and whatnot, and he said I can, like you, Marcus, I can neither confirm nor deny that I wouldn't be surprised to see it in both places, in both 8 and 28, so that people aren't going, oh, you got to do it here. That it's going to be right back in your laps to do what you think should be done properly. Is where I think that's where it's going to go, but we're going to find out because they got to have some more involved.
Well, one last comment. We're still writing it in 8. Right? Because that's what our guys' core competency is. They understand that, and we understand the need for the coordination. And the barriers that we hoped for before was that the contract hardware distributor would work with the security integrator. Now we're saying, look, you guys, that's not your core competency. You need to make sure you go down and marry a contract hardware distributor or a door guy. Because otherwise, the desired outcome by the end user is not going to be a good one. And we're all required to make that happen, right?
Yeah, you had a comment. You still need to make?
I can hold it because it's really been discussed already among the past few minutes.
All right.
So,
Detroit.
the one thing that people haven't described yet, though, is card format. All of this works fine if everybody's doing a generic card format, but a lot of those keys are locked by the manufacturer, so I can't mix and match an AD400 and then, any of the Imperial locks. And that's where we come in, because it depends on who owns that key. So in the Division 8 world, they have key coordination meetings, brass key coordination meetings early on. That's not been discussed, and that's That's why it can't ever be one or the other. Because something has to, we own the card format. Depends on who owns that key in the reader.
And I totally agree with you on that. And to me, when we're working with our client, I actually have a methodology where I actually start with card and lock technology, because basically, if you're going beyond procs, if you're going to any kind of smart card, you really have got to match the card technology to the manufacturer's locking technology. I push both the guys, both companies here. I think Don will tell you I push pretty hard, and she pushed back pretty hard. So the other gentleman.
Like you're saying, it's a pain in the ass.
Is, I want best in class. I want to be able to put it, if my client wants to use AppTeak, I want to be able to put an AppTeak on an Apple integrated lock. I mean, that's really what I would like to be able to do someday. We're not going to get there for a while.
And Troy, I think you can't do that because HID owns that key for security. They're not going to publish that key. And
totally. I agree. We're not there.
We're not going to go into a key discussion here, but I think
I'm saying card format.
Yeah. But I think you raised a really good point, and I made a note. I think we should schedule, another session to talk about that issue and associated issues, because you're right. We haven't talked about it all. We don't have really the time to vet it here, but it's worth talking about. So I thank you for bringing it up. And
so the only thing I wanted to throw out is we got I know, but just one last comment. So the problem I have in overall general today is the format of a door hardware schedule is antiquated. It is the hardest thing to read. Ben Bushko was telling me the other day that he had a 26-digit letter model number, and every single one of those was unique to the lock. We need to find a different way, and we need to find a way to really concisely put our door hardware groups. On that small courthouse job I had the same kind of doors spread across 5 different door hardware groups. I don't understand why. So we need a better way. When I've done my door hardware schedules on my own, for like when I did Lane, we used Excel. We just went ahead and we listed the doors, we had commonalities on the doors, and we sorted and we created our door hardware groups. I don't think it's that hard to do, and we used plain English to describe what we were looking for, which is really not in a door hardware schedule.
So there may be some room there to do something as we continue these discussions moving forward. A couple other significant changes occurred in 2016. I want to be sure that you're all aware of them, and then we're going to come over here to Fernando. First of all, we now have networks. So you have the ability within Division 28 to specify fully the network that supported the security devices. So previously networks were only 27. I now think that we have a more complete breakout of networking gear in 28 than they have in 27.
Where's the integration going?
I'm sorry?
Where's the integration going now? Down the drain.
Well, she's asking where does integration go, but I just want to make another comment on this. One of the precedents for that occurs in another division, process control equipment. Process control defines your own network. They've got, in some cases, proprietary networks. So what do we have in security? We've got some cases where you have blended networks where the security systems are running over the corporate network, it's VLAN'd out or whatever it might be. In those cases, we would anticipate that network is going to be specified in Division 27. But there are those cases where the security network is specified entirely within 28, that there are certain kinds of switches. And now you've got companies like Ultronics making switches, and you've got other manufacturers who who manufacture products designed specifically for security equipment. All we're saying is you have the ability in a dedicated network to specify it within 28 and to control that. And there's certain requirements there, all right? MBT5 bridge, you look at it and it's a very security-friendly kind of a network switch. And, port security features, bandwidth utilization features, things that are very helpful in the security market. So we're not saying you got to do it in 28, but it's an option for you to do it in 28 if it's dedicated. Otherwise, you've got 27. Server storage and workstation. is all pulled out. All that now is in 280500. So, because you've got virtual servers, you've got servers doing multiple things. So, that's been aggregated and now is in common work results and not in the individual resident components like access control or video. So that was significant. Integrated systems, there's an integrated systems component in 280500 as well. So you would specify your systems integration requirements there. That includes electrical, mechanical, and informational. So we've tried to recognize that, that as well. So you're going to, and we're trying to clarify that further in 28. The thing that Fernando gave me such a hard time about, and which is, give me a hard time, you can put on a panel. That's the way it works around here.
I have no problem with that.
If you're really bad, we'll give you a mic. So, all the cabling stuff, cable hangers, network cabling, all that stuff that used to be in 2805, that's all gone. Because once they told us the dumb stuff belongs elsewhere, that we're only the smart stuff. But they say, Ray, you can't use that phraseology. But okay. So all the cabling stuff, along with some further sub-breakouts for cabling, is all put into 27. Now, I'll let you go and I'll rebut. So what was your issue with that?
Okay, so first of all, I have just a show of hands that I'd like to see. So I'd like to know, out of all the consultants here, how many of you have done consulting for something other than security, not for the odd job, but for a significant amount of time, 3, 4, 5 years? Anybody, for instance, been a communications consultant or an AV consultant? Okay, so we got a fair amount of people, like roughly half. So I think those of you that have had experience consulting, for another discipline like myself, I started off in the communication structure cabling consulting side. The master format, in my view, shouldn't make our life as consultants more difficult. If anything, it should make our lives a little easier. We already have enough things that we need to coordinate. We've talked about some of those here, door hardware and all this sort of stuff. When it comes to network cabling, category 6, or whatnot for IP video surveillance, which of course that's what it is today, it absolutely makes sense to me that it should stay in 27, because as a communications consultant, I have the experience, the knowledge, I know what the testing that's needed that I need to write into the specs and all that sort of stuff. If we put it into Division 28, the 4-pair Cat 6 cabling requirement, and if it's a security consultant who has little or no experience in structured cabling, you might not end up with a certified system, a warranted system, a system that's been tested and approved and all that sort of stuff. So on the video surveillance side, I have no issues with it remaining in 27. It's the rest of the cabling that I don't agree with.
Like what?
So for a traditional, not like a non-IP type system where you've got a multi-conductor cable going to a door for a card reader, for an electrified lock, for a mag lock, for like all the other devices that are non-IP that you might have at the door, you don't have a 4-pair cable. Okay, that cable should not be in Division 27, because then that specification being specified by the security consultant now has to coordinate further with me. If I'm not playing the dual role on a project, right? If I'm the comms consultant and I'm coordinating with a security consultant outside of Arup, that one more coordination now I got to do. I have to talk to the security consultant on one more thing. Mm-hmm. There's already enough things we got to talk about, and that shouldn't have to be one of them.
Where would you put the power? I hate to call it low voltage because, in construction, low voltage could be anything below 120.
Yeah.
The 12, 24 volt kind of stuff.
Class 2 PO.
Where would you put that?
Put which, sorry?
Class 2 wiring, 12 volt to 24 volt stuff that powers,
Look, I think that.
Sorry, go ahead, Ryan.
To make it simple, anything that's part of the structured cabling system should be given 27. Anything else that's specialized should be given
It should, I think that it would be easier for the consultants to specify the cabling for whatever system they are specifying as part of their division, their section. But by moving something, I mean, what do we gain? What do we gain by having security cabling, not in 28 but in 27? What is positive about that? Like, I'm curious.
Just on the package, well, I don't know, the other person from New York can test. The package is sold as low voltage, like you're saying, infrastructure. That's all package you bought. You're not taking the security, division this and that. No, they're taking that one, and that's how it's sold. That's how it's bid out and thing, separate from the security package. That's the way it's sold. That's the way it's bid out. And it's every single project that I've done that had all that in there.
So
exactly
maybe there are like one of the things that somebody's pointed out to me, and again, I'm going to reiterate the same thing and to remind those of you that may have forgotten what I said earlier. The master format is not meant to indicate who's going to do what piece of work. Right. Ultimately, it's the general contractor's responsibility. Right. Okay? So by taking that out of the equation, right, of who does what, of who's going to do what, I don't see, unless somebody can tell me, I don't see what benefit there is in having the access control cabling, for instance, that is non-IP, move to 27. Somebody point out the benefit to me.
So you say then that the access control that's IP should be in 27, the access control that's not IP should be in 28.
Because the cabling...
What happens when you take... let me finish that and then complicate that. So now you've got power over coax. So now you got, Ethernet over coax. So your coaxial cable is carrying Ethernet, it's carrying power. So you've got network cabling over that equipment. And not to mention, PoE to devices that may be furnished from a network switch that may be in 27, may be in 28. So the lines are very, very blurry.
No, it's not blurry.
You don't think so?
I don't see it.
Where do you see it, Rob?
Well, I agree that structured cable needs to be in Division 27. Your typical Division 28 contractor doesn't understand all the issues about certifying and those type of things.
Can you come back here? Okay, Jeff, what do you say?
So, and I agree with you wholeheartedly. If you ever had systems guy try to coordinate with a communications guy, it's a nightmare. Because first of all, you have to set up a demarc and decide where your communication system ends and where that system begins. Because communications guys don't know anything about fire alarm systems, they don't know anything about door control systems, and so the wiring that goes between your door hardware and that control box, wherever you decide that demarc should be, that wiring should be in that system, and wherever that system is. So if it's Division 28 or Division 8, that wiring stays there. I understand, and my question to you is, you're saying that you've sold your projects where low voltage wiring, that's anything below like 120, is basically sold as a package and the guy comes in and installs his wire. But how does he know what's connected on either side? He's just going to run wire and conduit and just leave it and just walk away, and that's it?
Now, the thing is, who is doing the infrastructure design? The person who's running the wire. The security guy isn't. No, well, at least where I am, they're not. You know what I mean? You have an electrician that's doing that. So that in that package, they're
so he's just going to come, pull wire to conduit, leave it, and then the security guy or door control guy is going to come in and terminate on the left.
So we've got time for, gentlemen, we have time for 2 more comments, and then
we're getting again to the discussion about who does what. Like we keep rolling back to who's doing what, and that is not the purpose of the master format.
This would be a lot easier discussion if we didn't have more and more of this stuff running over IP networks.
Well, as a real consultant, I could do.
I mean, we're not going to change that. The point is, you've got it's this pain that you have that when you go from, in our case, analog to digital and IP. because the old world was set up one way, the new world is set up another way. We've got a foot in each world right now, and so you know, we're having that pain, but you know, it's going to be less and less of a discussion as that migration continues and it goes more and more, you know, IP. We're not going to solve it today. You still have the power to do it where you think is best. But I think the encouraging sign is we got a forum here. We're going to keep it going. To continue to have these kinds of discussions, to take suggestions, roll them up. We've got a pipeline. You know, I'm working through SIA in terms of talking to CSI to continue to you know, tweak this and comment and share our thoughts with each other. Look, we've got disagreement here. We have disagreement on door hardware, we've got disagreement on cabling, maybe even a little bit on networks. We're not going to resolve those. Ultimately, you guys are going to need those decisions for your clients. However, by talking to each other and hearing their point of view, you know, it might help you do it with a little, you know, better knowledge or implementation, and have those, you know, you can have more productive discussions with the manufacturers here as we go down together. So, when was the last time you guys had a, you know, master format discussion like this in the industry? When?
Last time I had a phone call with you.
A bunch of shit.
I thought I was polite about it.
You were. No, he was good. He was good. So anyway, thank all of you for being in this session and for all of this. It's a good discussion. We didn't resolve anything, but I think we have a better understanding, which, you know, was all I could expect. So thank you. Thank you.